I actually wrote a fictional story based on these incidents, but decided that the real events, exactly as they happened, would make a better video. For privacy reasons, I've changed the names of the people involved in this story. When we first moved into our current home, our neighbour across the street was very quiet and mostly kept to herself. We'd occasionally wave to each other or have a brief conversation while taking out the bins. I often saw her smoking on her front veranda with an older man, who I assume must have been her husband or partner. One day I saw this man being taken away in an ambulance, and he never came back. A few months after this happened, May knocked on the door with 2 teddy bears for my kids. She said they'd belonged to her grandchildren, but she no longer had any contact with them. I thanked her and asked what her name was, as we'd never properly introduced ourselves. When May told me her last name, I asked if she was related to Letitia, a girl I knew from playgroup, who was around the same age as me. May said that Letitia was her granddaughter. I thanked her again and took the teddy bears inside. It was getting close to Christmas, so I thought it would be appropriate to give May a Christmas card with a small box of chocolates. I had my kids sign the card and we walked over to May's house. May seemed really happy with this gesture and invited us inside. We didn't stay long because the smell of cigarettes in her house was overwhelming. Before we left, May gave me a piece of chalk for the kids. It looked like ant chalk, so I threw it away and washed my hands as soon as we got home. Another few months went by, and then May knocked on the door again and asked if I could call a taxi for her. I called her a taxi and she left. She started coming over more frequently to ask us to call a taxi, and said that it was becoming difficult for her to use her phone. This progressed to May coming over multiple times a day to ask for help with her TV remote and other electronic devices. We also noticed that May had been acting strange in other ways. For example, she would wander around in people's front yards collecting things in a transparent bucket. We also saw her rummaging through trash cans a number of times. I sent May's granddaughter a message on Facebook to let her know what had been going on and expressed my concerns around May's behavior. Letitia told me that May no longer spoke to anyone in the family and said that she would try and find out if anyone still had contact with her. Then one day, May came over very upset and asked me to call the police for her. She went on to explain that the man she had been involved with was breaking into her house at night. I had seen this man at her house frequently, but assumed he must have been a relative, as he was at least 30 years younger than her. I called the police and they sent a car over. Not long after the police left, May came over again to show me a bag of rubbish, which had apparently been left by whoever was breaking into her house. I told her we would keep an eye out for her boyfriend's car, and she went home, only to return again 20 minutes later to show me the same bag of rubbish. I called the police again and told them I had concerns for May's well-being and mental decline. The officer I spoke to reassured me that they were aware of May's memory loss and mental health problems, and said that they had made referrals to a couple of services that could support her. Our next encounter with May was very unusual. She knocked on the door smiling and holding a knife early one morning. My partner asked her what was going on, and she just walked off. Later that day, I saw her standing out on the street screaming, "You're just jealous because you don't have a boyfriend," at some woman who I'd never seen before. I decided from that moment on to avoid May and just not answer the door when she came over. One day she caught me sitting in the driveway while my kids were riding their bikes and came over with a bunch of old bed linen that she wanted me to have. I politely declined and she got angry at me. We didn't hear from her again for a while until one night she started banging on our bedroom window at 4 a.m, yelling at us to call the police because she couldn't find her cigarettes. We ignored it and eventually she left, but then we heard her banging and yelling at someone else's house further down the street. I really hope this woman gets the help she desperately needs.